The night the rain would not stop, the power went out and the whole street held its breath. In the Carter's house, lightning flashed through the windows and turned the living room white. Grace Carter ran up the stairs with a flashlight, calling for her children, Ava, Liam and Noah, while Daniel checked the fuse box. When Grace reached the landing, she heard whispering from the attic, like a chorus of tiny winds. She pushed open the attic door. In the blue glow of the storm, she saw her 3 children standing in a circle with their housemaid, Naomi. The children's faces were calm, too calm. Each had a thin red thread tied around a wrist. Naomi's palm hovered over a small wooden box on the floor, and a shadow behind her moved even though nobody else was there. Ava, the eldest, turned to her mother with eyes that did not look like Ava's eyes anymore and said in a slow voice, "Mom, we don't feel afraid now. She made us family." Grace dropped the flashlight. It rolled and pointed its weak beam at the wooden box. Inside something shimmered. The air smelled like burnt sugar and wet leaves. Naomi lifted her head and smiled at Grace, the kind of smile that said this was already done, and even the thunder could not undo it. "You came late," Naomi said softly. "They are one now." Grace tried to step forward, but her hand hit something invisible like a wall of cold water. Naomi's fingers curled, and the red threads on the children's wrists tightened on their own. The attic window banged open and wind rushed in, scattering old papers, lifting hair. Downstairs, Daniel shouted, "Grace? Are they up there?" His voice cracked with worry. Grace leaned toward her children and reached for Liam's face. Liam did not blink. Naomi began to hum, a low tune that sounded older than the house, older than the rain, and the wooden box shook as if a small heart beat inside it. Grace's throat closed. "Naomi," she whispered, "what have you done?" Lightning flashed again, and for a brief second, Grace saw something like a dark hand stretch out of the box and brush the red threads with a finger made of smoke. The threads glowed just a little. The attic smelled like matches blown out. Naomi opened her eyes wide and whispered, "Welcome them." The children all inhaled at the same time. Then Daniel's footsteps hit the last stair. He burst through the door. The invisible wall that stopped Grace from getting nearer pushed him too. He slammed his shoulder and shouted his children's names. The red threads flashed like tiny sparks. Naomi looked at him, still smiling, and said clearly, "You are brave, Mr. Carter. But you came too late." The flashlight flickered, the box rattled once more, and a sound filled the attic that did not belong to any instrument, like wet wings opening in a place with no birds. Grace clutched Daniel's arm. Naomi lifted the box a little higher. "Now," she said to the children, "say it." The children opened their mouths. Everything froze. The house gave a long, tired creak. The rain fell harder. And in that breath before the children spoke, the entire attic went dark. Where the story truly begins is far from thunder and shadows. It begins on a soft morning 2 months earlier, when the Carters decided to hire a maid. Grace and Daniel were not rich. Daniel managed a small hardware store on Maple Avenue, the kind with nails and glass jars and hand-painted signs. Grace worked part-time at a clinic, where she gave stickers to kids after shots and called grandparents to confirm appointments. They were kind people. They believed in second chances. They taught their children to share their snacks and say please to the bus driver. If you asked Grace what mattered most in life, she would say, "Kindness is a seed. It grows into a safe tree." If you asked Daniel, he would say, "Help people when you can. The world spins easier when we do." But kindness can be a door, and not everyone who walks through a door brings light with them. On that morning, a woman arrived at the Carter's gate with a small suitcase and a big hope. She said her name was Naomi. She had a shy smile and a voice that came out like a secret. She said she was looking for work, any work. She said she could cook, clean, and help with the children. She said she loved children. Grace saw the worn shoes, the careful hands, the way Naomi stood like someone used to being hungry. Grace offered her a glass of water. Naomi held the glass with both hands like it was a gift. Daniel asked where she was from, and she said she had moved around a lot, but she wanted to stay somewhere safe now. "Safety," she said, "is a house with kind walls." Grace felt her heart soften. "We have kind walls," she said. The Carters needed help. Grace's mother, Ruth, had been sick and sometimes needed Grace to drive her to appointments. Daniel's store had new orders coming in long hours. The kids, Ava 12, Liam 9, Noah 7, were bright and busy and sometimes messy like small storms. A maid would be a blessing. They called a friend at church who knew someone who said Naomi did good work in another town. They asked for references and Naomi gave a number. Daniel called it and a gentle voice said, "Yes, she was quiet. Yes, she kept to herself. Yes, she was capable." Grace did not notice the pause. Kindness is a door. Naomi moved into the small spare room near the kitchen. She kept her clothes neatly folded. She never left a plate dirty. She hummed when she mopped, a tune like rain that never reached the ground. On the first night, she stood in the doorway of the children's room and said, "Sleep well, little ones." Ava, who read 3 books a week and knew how to braid her own hair, whispered to Liam, "She looks like a story character." Liam, who collected smooth stones and believed every dog could understand secret words, whispered back, "A nice character." Noah, who still sometimes mispronounced spaghetti, just waved sleepily. 2 weeks passed and Naomi was perfect. She woke early to make breakfast and packed lunch boxes with notes that said, "Be brave today." She ironed Daniel's shirts and made Grace ginger tea. When Grandma Ruth visited, she said, "This one moves like a shadow, quiet and quick." Ruth had eyes that saw under words. She called Naomi child, and Naomi smiled in a small way, but her eyes did not smile. Ruth told Grace, "Kindness is good, my dear, but keep your windows locked at night." Grace laughed and kissed her mother's hand. "It's daylight, Mom?" Ruth nodded. "Daylight is when shadows look thin." The first odd thing was a little normal. The kids began to spend more time in the attic. "We're making a secret club," Ava announced at dinner, her chin up. "No grown-ups allowed." Daniel smiled. "Clubs need rules," he said. "Rule 1, be kind." Ava rolled her eyes like 12-year-olds do, but she wrote the rule in a notebook. Naomi cleared the plates and hummed. "I like clubs," she said. "They make children feel brave." Liam asked if Naomi had any cool club ideas. Naomi tapped the table with a nail and said, "A circle is the oldest club. Everyone stands inside and promises to stay." Noah clapped. Naomi smiled at him, and for a second her teeth looked too sharp in the kitchen light, but then the light blinked and they were normal again. The second odd thing was small and easy to miss. The children began to tie strings. First it was bright yarn around their pencils. Then thin threads around their fingers. "We're practicing knots," Ava said. "It's for team spirit." Grace shrugged. Team spirit was good. Team spirit won soccer games and science fairs. Kindness was a seed. She watered it and trusted it to grow. One Saturday, Naomi asked if she could take the kids to the library. "I want to teach them stories from long ago," she said. "Stories about courage." Grace felt grateful. "You are part of our family now," she said, and Naomi nodded, like someone checking a box. When they returned, the children were quiet. "We read about circles," Liam said. "Circles protect people." Naomi set a small wooden box on the counter. "I found this at a yard sale," she said. "It's for our club. Something to keep treasures." Grace ran her finger over the lid. The wood was dark and smooth, carved with swirls that did not settle into a shape. "It's pretty," she said. Naomi lifted it and looked at the children with soft eyes. "We will use it only when we all agree," she said. Ava nodded like a soldier. Grandma Ruth came by that evening with a pot of okra soup. She set it on the stove and sniffed the air like a cat. "What's that would smell?" she asked. Grace showed her the box. Ruth did not touch it. She leaned close and squinted. "Where did this come from?" Grace told her. Ruth's mouth tightened. "Some boxes are not made to hold toys," she said. "Do not let children play with a stranger's box." Grace sighed. "Mom," she said gently, "not everything is a sign." Ruth looked at Naomi, who was peeling yams with steady hands. "No," Ruth said quietly, "not everything. But some things are. Watch the edges." That night, Grace dreamed of threads. Long red threads floating down the hallway like fish in water. When she woke, the house felt cold even though the heat was on. She walked to the children's room and saw them asleep in a row, threads tied to their bedposts like little leashes that led to the attic stairs. She shook her head and smiled at herself for being dramatic. In the morning, the threads were gone. A week later, the rain came. It fell hard, loud on the roof, like 1,000 small feet running in circles. Daniel closed the windows. Naomi made cocoa. The kids built a fort out of blankets and laughed. The storm made the day feel like night. In the afternoon, the power blinked, came back, blinked again, and died. "I'll check the fuse," Daniel said, grabbing a flashlight. Grace lit candles. Naomi's face by candlelight looked like a picture in an old book, gentle and still. She said, "Rain makes the world clean," and for some reason Grace shivered. When evening rolled into deeper dark, the children asked if they could go to the attic to finish a club thing. Grace said yes, but be careful, and Daniel said he would be right downstairs with the fuse. Naomi said, "I will watch them," and like a soft river, she guided them up the stairs. Ruth had called earlier to say her ankle was sore, so she would not drive over in the rain. "Lock your doors," she had reminded Grace. "Answer when your bones whisper." Grace had promised. If you have ever watched a bad moment approach in slow motion, you know how it felt for Grace. One minute, she was picking up the living room, listening to the rain and Daniel's hum near the fuse box. The next minute, the house grew too quiet. No giggles from the attic. No footsteps overhead. Just the rain. She called up the stairs, "Ava? Liam? Noah?" No answer. Her bones whispered. She climbed. The attic door was a mouth. It opened on slow hinges. The air inside was heavy and sweet. Grace stepped in and saw the circle, the threads, and the box. She saw Naomi smile, gentle as always and yet not gentle at all. She saw her children standing too still, their small shoulders relaxed like swimmers floating in deep water they could not see. She felt the invisible wall that kept her from rushing to grab them and run. She saw the box tremble like it had a tiny storm inside it. And then, in the lightning light, Grace saw one more thing. Ava's face, brave and scared at the same time, as if some part of her was shouting from far away, "Help." Grace's heart hurt in a way that felt like falling. Downstairs, Daniel shouted her name again. The house answered with a loud pop as the last bit of power died. The flashlight in Grace's hand blinked out. In the thick dark, Naomi whispered, "This is how a family stays safe forever." Her voice sounded close to Grace's ear even though Naomi was across the room. "Pain leaves. Fear leaves. We keep what matters inside the circle." Grace did not know what it meant, but she knew it sounded like kindness twisted into a knot. She pushed against the invisible cold and it pushed back like a heavy door. "Naomi," she said, keeping her voice steady, "let my children step out." Naomi's smile did not change. "They already stepped in," she said. The wind burst through the open attic window. Papers flew. A jar rolled and cracked. And from the wooden box, a ribbon of dark smoke slipped out like a snake made of night. It touched Noah's wrist. The red thread lit up for a second like a coal. Noah shivered and smiled, a strange, sleepy smile that was not his. Grace cried out and slammed her palm against the cold air, and it pressed back hard enough to make her fingers ache. Daniel crashed through the door shoulder first. He hit the barrier and bounced away, swallowed by the dark. "Kids," he roared. "Ava. Liam. Noah." Naomi's humming grew louder. The ribbon of smoke turned toward Liam. Somewhere below, the family's old dog Ginger began to howl, a long, sad sound that rose and broke. The sound wove up the stairs and through the dark like a rope. The children flinched all at once as if the howl pulled on them. For a blink, the ribbon of smoke hesitated. Naomi opened her eyes wide, and her gentle voice became iron. "Now," she commanded and pointed at the box. The ribbon of smoke launched toward Liam's thread. The wooden beams groaned. The house seemed to lean. Ginger's howl turned into a cough, then a sharp, sudden silence. And on the attic floor, just as the smoke reached for Liam, the old dog's collar rolled into the circle on its own, clinked against the box and stopped moving. The red threads flared like tiny fireflies, the box rattled like a trapped heart, and Naomi hissed one word that froze everyone in place. "Welcome. Where are you watching from?" Tap the like button, subscribe for more stories, and share this with a friend who loves suspense. The attic shook as if the storm outside had crawled into its bones. Naomi's whisper stretched across the dark. "Welcome." The word slid into Grace's ears and wrapped around her heart like rope. Ava, Liam, and Noah all tilted their heads at the same time, their eyes glowing faintly in the candlelight. Daniel gritted his teeth and slammed his shoulder into the invisible wall again, but it held firm, cold, and unbroken. The wooden box rattled and gave a low groan, as if something inside was waking. Grace gasped when she saw Ava's lips move. At first, no sound came, but then, in a voice that didn't belong to a 12-year-old, Ava said, "We are not afraid anymore. We are family now." Naomi smiled wider, and the glow of the threads grew stronger, pulsing with the rhythm of a hidden drum. "No!" Grace cried, slamming both palms against the barrier. "You're our children, not hers. Ava, baby, listen to me. Liam. Noah. Look at me." Her voice cracked, desperate, but their eyes stayed fixed on Naomi. The maid raised the box high as thunder rolled through the roof, and the children inhaled in perfect unison, their tiny chests rising like they shared one breath. Then suddenly, another noise cut through the room. It was faint but sharp. 3 knocks. Not from the attic door. Not from the window. But from inside the wooden box. Knock. 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 Grace's stomach dropped. Daniel's face went pale in the lightning flash. Naomi whispered, "It's too late." And before Grace could scream, the box creaked open on its own. A streak of black smoke uncoiled into the air, swirling like a snake with no head. It darted toward the children's threads. Ava closed her eyes, her face too calm, too surrendered. Liam's small hand trembled, but he didn't move away. Noah giggled softly as though the smoke was a game only he understood. Grace slammed her fists against the barrier again. "Stop this, Naomi. You said you loved children." Naomi's voice was sweet and hollow at the same time. "Love is why I chose them. Fear breaks children. But I will teach them how to be fearless. This is a gift. You wouldn't understand." Daniel roared and grabbed a wooden beam from the corner of the attic. He swung it at the barrier. Sparks lit where the wood hit the invisible wall, and for a split second, a small crack opened, just wide enough for a hand. Daniel shoved his arm through, reaching for Liam. But before he could touch his son's sleeve, the crack sealed, slicing his arm with a line of frost. He screamed, pulling it back, his skin red and raw. The smoke coiled tighter around the children's wrists. Their small voices joined together in a low hum that matched Naomi's. The sound was not human anymore. It was deeper, older, and it filled the attic like water filling a jar. Grace's knees buckled, but she held herself up, clutching Daniel's shoulder. And then, just as the smoke was about to sink fully into the children's bodies, something impossible happened. The attic light bulb, which had been dead since the power cut, flickered once, twice, and then it blazed so brightly it hurt to look at. The smoke hissed and recoiled like a snake touched by fire. Naomi shrieked and dropped the box. It hit the floor with a heavy thud. The glow from the threads dimmed just a little. Grace seized the moment. "Ava, remember what I told you? Kindness is a seed. It grows into a safe tree. Baby, you said you'd plant your own tree one day. Remember." For a second, just one fragile second, Ava blinked. Her lips trembled as if her real voice was trying to crawl out of her throat. Liam's eyes flicked toward his father, confusion breaking through the fog. Noah frowned, his smile fading. Naomi snarled, her soft mask gone, her face sharp with rage. "Do not listen to her," she screamed. Her voice cracked the air like glass breaking. She raised her hands toward the box again. The smoke gathered itself and lunged back toward the children. The attic beams groaned louder. The wind outside howled like it wanted to break into the house. Grace clutched Daniel's arm, her heart racing. She knew if the smoke touched them again, the children would be gone, forever part of whatever Naomi had called into the circle. The wooden box rattled once more. Papers flew, candles fell, and the last bit of light flickered dangerously low. And then in the chaos, Noah's tiny voice cut through, high and scared. "Mommy?" The circle trembled. Naomi's smile faltered. But before Grace could answer her son, the box lid snapped open all the way, and something larger than smoke began to crawl out. "Where are you watching from?" If you want the next line, make sure you like this story, subscribe for more chilling folktales, and share it with a friend who loves suspense. From the wooden box, something darker than the night itself spilled out. It was not smoke this time, it was thicker, heavier, like tar mixed with shadows. It slithered across the attic floor and began to take shape. First, long arms that bent the wrong way. Then, a face, or what could almost be called a face. Two empty holes where eyes should be, and a mouth that stretched too wide, grinning without lips. The attic grew colder, the kind of cold that gnaws at bones. Grace's teeth chattered, but she stepped closer to the barrier. "Daniel," she whispered, "it's not just smoke. It's alive." Naomi's eyes glowed with triumph as she raised both hands. "Meet what has been waiting," she said, her voice almost singing. "They will never fear again." The creature's mouth opened and a sound came out. Not a scream, not a growl, but 1,000 whispers all at once. Whispers of children crying. Whispers of promises broken. Whispers that made the heart feel hollow. Ava clutched her head and whimpered, "Stop." Liam's knees buckled. Noah tried to cover his ears, but the whispers slid right inside. Grace slammed her palm against the invisible wall again, desperate. "Ava, Liam, Noah. You don't belong to her. You belong to us. You belong to love." For the smallest moment, Ava's eyes flickered like a candle flame in wind. She gasped, shaking her head. The red thread around her wrist loosened just a little. Grace saw it and her heart soared. "Yes, baby, fight it. Remember our mornings. Pancakes with too much syrup. Remember Grandma Ruth's songs. Remember Ginger chasing his tail. That's your family." The monster hissed and Naomi snarled. "Do not listen to her. Your parents are weak. I offer you strength. No one will ever hurt you again. No nightmares. No tears. Only power." Liam whimpered, But I don't want power. I want Dad. His small voice broke the whispers for a second. The threads on his wrist trembled. Daniel pressed his bloody arm against the barrier and shouted, "I'm right here, son. I'll never leave you. Don't you dare let her steal you from me." His voice shook the attic beams, his love raw and fierce. Naomi's smile cracked. For the first time she looked afraid. She turned sharply to the creature. "Take them now," she ordered. The monster lurched forward. Its arms stretched toward Liam and Ava. Noah shrieked and stumbled backward, bumping into the barrier. Grace reached out with every ounce of her being, and though her hand still struck the invisible wall, the frost cracked under her palm. Tiny splinters of light spread where she pressed, glowing against the dark. The creature reeled back, hissing at the light. Naomi screamed, "No!" She lunged toward the children, her fingers clawing for the threads to tighten them again. But just then, bang! The attic door slammed open wider, crashing against the wall. A gust of wind blew in, scattering the circle of papers Naomi had so carefully arranged. In the middle of the gust, Grandma Ruth stood, leaning on her cane, her old eyes blazing like fire. Her voice was sharp, commanding, filled with something more ancient than Naomi's hum. "Children," she thundered. "Step away from the circle." The thread sparked. The monster hissed and shrank, writhing in pain at the sound of her words. Naomi staggered back, eyes wide with fury. "You shouldn't be here," she spat. But Ruth raised her hand, steady as stone, and said, "I should have been here all along." The air thickened. The barrier cracked louder where Grace's palm touched it. The children blinked rapidly, confusion returning to their faces. Ava gasped, "Grandma?" Naomi screamed with rage, her body trembling, her voice twisting into something no longer human. "You are too late. The bond is sealed." Ruth took one step closer, her cane striking the floor like thunder. "Then I will break it," she said. The attic pulsed with light and dark colliding. The children cried out, caught in the pull of both forces. The monster shrieked, its shape flickering. Grace clung to Daniel's arm, her heart racing. She knew this was only the beginning. And then, suddenly, the wooden box snapped shut on its own, as if an unseen hand forced it closed. The attic fell silent. Too silent. Everyone froze, waiting for what would happen next. "Where are you watching from?" If you want more, make sure you like this story, subscribe for more, and share it with a friend who loves suspense. The silence in the attic was louder than the storm outside. The rain had not stopped, but up here, it felt as if time itself was holding its breath. The wooden box sat in the center of the circle, its lid pressed shut, yet faint tremors ran through the floorboards as though something inside was fighting to come out. Naomi's chest rose and fell quickly, her smile gone, her eyes sharp and wild. She stared at Grandma Ruth with fury. "You meddling old woman," she hissed. "You don't know what you've interrupted." Ruth did not flinch. She leaned on her cane and stood firm. "I know enough," she said, her voice steady. "I know darkness when I smell it. And I know when children are in danger." The children swayed, confused, the glow around their threads dimming but not gone. Ava blinked hard, her face pale. "Grandma," she whispered, "I feel heavy." Liam rubbed his wrist as though it burned. Noah, the youngest, started to cry, his voice breaking the still air. Grace pressed both hands against the invisible wall, feeling it quake under her palms. "Mom," she cried, "help them. I can't reach them." Ruth closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. Then she began to hum. Not Naomi's dark, low tune, but a gentle melody, an old lullaby she used to sing to Grace when she was a little girl. The song spoke of rivers flowing home, of birds resting in safe trees, of dawn always chasing night away. The children's eyes softened. Noah hiccuped mid-cry and whispered, "That's the bedtime song." Ava straightened, her hand tugging against the red thread. It loosened slightly, glowing less. Liam squeezed his eyes shut and muttered, "I want to go home." Naomi screamed, her voice breaking like shattering glass. "Stop that." She rushed forward, grabbing for the box, but just as her fingers brushed it, the box burned her skin. She shrieked and pulled back, dark smoke rising from her hand. Daniel took the chance. He slammed the wooden beam he still held against the barrier. Crack. A jagged line of light split across the invisible wall. Grace pushed with all her strength. The line widened, and suddenly her hand broke through. She reached for Noah. Her fingers brushed his sleeve, warm, real, alive. "Noah, come to Mommy," she cried. Noah stumbled forward, confused but desperate. His small wrist yanked hard against the thread. For a heartbeat it looked like it would snap. The glow around him dimmed almost completely. But Naomi's voice turned guttural, almost beast-like. "Don't you dare leave," she roared. She raised both hands and the threads tightened violently around the children's wrists. Ava screamed. Liam fell to his knees. Noah yelped in pain. The wooden box rattled again. Something inside slammed against the lid, hard enough to shake the entire attic. Dust rained from the rafters. The monster's whisper seeped out once more, faint but chilling, wrapping around Naomi's words like a choir of shadows. Ruth's lullaby faltered as her knees buckled. Grace cried out, "Mom, stay strong." Daniel swung again, his beam sparking against the barrier, but it still held firm except for the crack. Naomi's face twisted, half human, half something else. Her teeth looked too long. Her shadow stretched unnaturally tall against the wall. "They are mine," she shrieked. "I promised them freedom from fear and they welcomed me." Ava, still on her knees, looked up at Naomi, her young face filled with tears. "You lied," she whispered hoarsely. "I don't feel free. I feel trapped." Her words cut through the hum like a knife. The red thread around her wrist flared, and then loosened just a little more. Grace gasped, hope flooding her chest. "Yes, Ava? Keep talking. You know the truth." Naomi spun on Ava, eyes burning. "Ungrateful child." She lunged toward her. And just then the attic window slammed shut with a force that shook the walls. Every candle blew out. The room went pitch black. In the darkness, something inside the box laughed. "Where are you watching from?" If you want more, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more thrilling folktales, and share this with someone who loves suspense. The laugh from inside the box was not human. It rolled across the attic like thunder underwater, deep and hollow, filling every corner. Grace's breath caught in her throat. The children whimpered, clinging to one another in the pitch black. Daniel swung his beam blindly, but it only cracked against air. Then a faint red glow seeped from the cracks of the wooden box, bathing the attic in eerie light. Naomi stood frozen for a moment, her face lit crimson, her eyes wide in terror. She whispered, "It's awake." Her voice was no longer confident. It was the voice of someone who had unleashed something she couldn't control. The children trembled. Ava gripped Liam's hand tightly. "I don't like this," she whispered, her tears shining in the red light. Noah pressed against the invisible barrier, reaching for his mother. Grace's hands shook, but she pressed her face close to the crack in the barrier. "Listen to me, babies," she said firmly, her voice breaking but steadying again. "You are stronger than this. You are loved. No box, no threats, no shadows can take away who you are." For a moment, the glow around the children's wrists flickered. The red threads hissed as though burned by her words. The monster inside the box growled louder, shaking the floor. Naomi spun toward Grace, snarling, "Shut up. You'll ruin everything." She lunged at the children again. But just as her fingers stretched for Noah, a cane struck the floor with a resounding thud. Grandma Ruth's voice rose strong and clear in the storm of fear. "Darkness is never stronger than love." The words hit the attic like a strike of lightning. The barrier cracked wider. Daniel shoved the beam through again, sparks flying. Grace slipped her arm deeper inside, nearly reaching Liam now. Naomi screamed, covering her ears, her body twisting in ways it shouldn't. Her shadow writhed on the walls like snakes. The monster inside the box shrieked in response, pounding harder, making the wooden lid bulge as though it would explode open any second. The children cried out together. Ava shouted, "I don't want this." Liam yelled, "I want Dad." Noah screamed, "Mommy?" The red threads glowed fiercely, then dimmed all at once, weakening, losing power. Naomi fell to her knees, clutching her chest. "No," she screamed, her voice echoing like 10 voices at once. "You can't take them back. They belong to the circle." Grace forced her hand through the crack and grabbed Liam's wrist. She yanked hard, and with a sharp snap, the thread around his wrist broke. Liam gasped as though waking from a nightmare, collapsing into the crack of light. Daniel caught his son's arm, pulling him out through the barrier. "Got you, buddy?" Daniel cried, tears in his eyes. The box roared. The red glow flared, nearly blinding. Naomi shrieked in rage and turned toward Ava and Noah. "If I cannot keep them all," she hissed, her voice shaking with madness, "then the box will have them instead." She thrust both hands toward the children. The box lid flung open. A black, clawed hand shot out, stretching toward Ava's face. Grace screamed, Daniel roared, and Ruth slammed her cane again. But the hand moved fast, too fast. It grazed Ava's cheek. Her eyes went wide. And then the attic floor split with a crack that echoed like the world itself breaking apart. "Where are you watching from?" If you want more, make sure you like this video, subscribe for more, and share it with a friend who loves suspense. The crack in the attic floor ripped through the wood like lightning, splitting the circle in two. Dust and splinters rained down into the living room below. Grace screamed Ava's name as the black claw pressed harder against her daughter's cheek. Ava's small body trembled, but she did not cry, her eyes locked on her mother's. "Mom," she whispered. "Don't let go." Grace shoved her whole arm through the widening crack in the barrier, ignoring the frost that burned her skin raw. She reached desperately for Ava, but the claw gripped tighter, pulling the girl toward the box. Naomi laughed, wild and broken, her voice echoing through the chaos. "It's too late. She's chosen." "No," Daniel bellowed. With one final roar, he raised the wooden beam and brought it down with all his strength against the barrier. This time, the wall shattered like glass, exploding into shards of cold light that scattered across the attic. The invisible prison was gone. Grace and Daniel lunged forward at the same time. Grace grabbed Ava's arm. Daniel caught Noah, pulling him out of the circle just as another claw stretched for the boy. The attic shook harder, the box rattling violently. The black arms shot out like snakes, slashing the air, desperate to drag the children back in. Ruth stepped between the monster and the family, raising her cane high. Her old voice boomed with a strength no one expected. "You will not take what love protects." The cane slammed into the floor, and a burst of white light surged from its tip. The black hands recoiled, shrieking. Naomi staggered backward, shielding her face, her skin burning under the glow. "Stop it," she howled. "You can't fight what's already bound." But Ava, still clutched in Grace's arms, shook her head fiercely. Through tears she shouted, "I don't belong to you. I belong to them." Her words shattered the last of the thread around her wrist. The red glow fizzled, then vanished. The monster inside the box roared, a sound so loud the whole house seemed to tremble on its foundation. Naomi fell to her knees, clawing at the floor, her voice breaking. "No. You were supposed to be mine. You were supposed to make me strong again." Grace pulled Ava close, whispering into her hair, "You are safe, you are loved, you are mine." Daniel lifted Noah, pressing the boy to his chest. Liam clung to his father's waist, sobbing with relief. But it wasn't over. The box began to lift off the floor on its own, spinning slowly. The red glow brightened into a blinding fire. The black arms stretched out wider than before, writhing like a nest of serpents. Ruth's face turned grim. She leaned heavily on her cane, sweat running down her forehead. "The bond is broken for now," she said, her voice shaking, "but the creature is free and it wants to take someone back with it." Naomi's laugh turned hollow. She raised her face, half-shadowed, half-human, and pointed a trembling finger at Grace. "Then it will take you." Before anyone could move, the box tilted violently, its black arms shooting straight for Grace's chest. The family screamed as the shadows swallowed her whole. "Where are you watching from?" If you want more, make sure you like this video, subscribe for more, and share it with a friend who loves suspense. The black arms wrapped around Grace like icy chains, pulling her toward the spinning box. She gasped as the shadows pressed against her skin, searing her with cold fire. Daniel lunged forward, grabbing her arm with both hands. "I won't let you go," he roared, veins bulging as he pulled with everything he had. But the shadows were stronger. They dragged Grace inch by inch toward the circle. Her fingernails scraped the attic floor, leaving marks in the wood. Ava clung to her mother's waist, sobbing. "Mom, don't leave us. Please don't leave us." The box glowed brighter, its red light pulsing like a furious heartbeat. Naomi laughed, staggering to her feet, her eyes blazing. "Yes, take her. Take the mother, and the children will be mine forever." Grandma Ruth's face tightened with fury. She lifted her cane again, but this time her hands shook violently. The power that had broken the barrier had drained her. Still, she struck the floor once more. "Let her go," she cried. A weak shimmer of light pulsed outward, slowing the shadows but not stopping them. Grace's breath came in ragged gasps. Her body was halfway into the red glow. Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to speak to her children. "Ava, Liam, Noah, remember this, love is stronger than fear. Always. Don't you ever forget that." Daniel's grip slipped as the shadows yanked harder. His eyes filled with tears. "No, Grace. I won't lose you." Suddenly, Liam stepped forward, his small hands glowing faintly where the broken thread had scarred his wrist. "Mom," he whispered, "you told us kindness grows into a safe tree. If that's true, then maybe we can make the tree now." He grabbed Ava's and Noah's hands. Together. The three children squeezed tight, their faces wet with tears but filled with determination. They closed their eyes and shouted all at once, their voices shaking the air. "She is our mom. We love her. You can't take her." The red threads that had once bound them now flared into brilliant white light, wrapping around their clasped hands. The glow shot outward, striking the shadows that held Grace. The black arms screeched and recoiled, smoke rising where the light touched them. Grace fell backward into Daniel's arms, coughing and trembling but alive. Daniel crushed her to his chest, his tears falling into her hair. "I've got you. You're safe." The monster inside the box roared in rage, the sound rattling the beams overhead. Naomi screamed, clutching her head, her body twisting unnaturally. Her voice warped, echoing with something inhuman. "No, they were mine. You can't take them back." But the children's light grew stronger, pulsing brighter than the red glow. The box cracked along its edges, splinters flying. The black arms flailed desperately, striking the attic walls, but each blow left scorch marks where the children's light pushed back. Ruth straightened slowly, her cane trembling in her hands. She whispered, almost to herself, "The children, they are the key." The family huddled together, the children's glow shielding them. Grace pressed her lips to Ava's forehead. Daniel wrapped his arms around them all. For a moment, it seemed as though love itself had won. But then, crack! The box split open down the middle. A towering shadow began to rise, larger than the attic itself. Its head brushed the ceiling, its arms dragging long claws against the floor. The light from the children flickered, straining against the sheer size of what had been unleashed. Naomi's voice rose in a chilling cry, "It is free at last." The shadow bent its head low, its empty eyes locking on the family huddled together. Its voice was a whisper and a scream at once. "Then I will take all of you. Where are you watching from?" If you want more, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more chilling folktales, and share this story with someone who loves suspense. The towering shadow unfurled itself fully, stretching until it seemed too big for the attic. Its claws scraped across the beams, sending wood splinters raining down. The red glow from the shattered box pulsed like a dying star, fueling the creature's massive form. The children's light held, but it flickered like a candle in the wind. Ava tightened her grip on her brother's hands. "Don't let go," she cried. Liam and Noah nodded, their young faces pale but fierce. Daniel pulled Grace and the children close, shielding them with his own body, though he knew it was useless against something this monstrous. His voice shook but remained firm, "Stay behind me." Naomi's laugh filled the attic, manic and broken. Her body jerked unnaturally as if the shadow was controlling her strings. "Finally," she shrieked, "it's free. You think your weak love can stand against this? It was worshipped long before you were born." Ruth raised her cane again, her breathing ragged. "Even so," she whispered, "love is older." Her voice grew louder. "Children, hold tight. You are the root. Now grow." The white glow around Ava, Liam, and Noah surged brighter. The light climbed their arms, spreading to their chests, their faces, until they glowed like lanterns in the storm. The shadow recoiled, hissing, but then lunged with its full weight. It crashed into the family. The floor groaned under the impact. Grace screamed as the darkness pressed in around them like a suffocating wave. The glow flickered, threatening to vanish. Daniel gritted his teeth, straining to hold onto his wife and children. "Don't let it win," he shouted. The shadow's claws slashed downward, one strike aimed at Ava. Without thinking, Ruth stepped between them. The claw pierced straight through her cane, shattering it into two. Light exploded from the break, blinding everyone for a moment. The shadow shrieked in pain, recoiling. Ruth fell to her knees, the broken half of the cane still glowing in her trembling hand. "Grandma!" Grace cried, rushing to her mother's side. Ruth's voice was weak but steady. "Don't worry about me. Finish this." The children's glow pulsed stronger again, responding to her sacrifice. Ava's eyes widened. "It's working," she shouted. But Naomi staggered closer, her face twisted, her voice booming with the shadows. "If I can't keep the children, then I'll take the parents instead." The shadow's claws shot past the children's glow, slamming into Daniel's chest. He gasped, his body lifting off the ground as though the darkness itself wanted to drag him inside. Grace screamed, holding onto his legs, refusing to let go. The children shrieked, their light flaring in panic. Ava screamed at the shadow, her voice cracking, "Leave him alone." The glow around the children surged again, brighter than before, exploding outward in a wave of white fire. It struck Naomi square in the chest, flinging her back against the wall. She let out a scream that split into two voices, hers and the monster's. The shadow reeled but did not vanish. Instead, it grew angrier, spreading its claws wider, filling the attic with choking darkness. And then the entire house shuddered, beams snapping, shingles rattling. The attic walls bowed inward as though the house itself could not contain what was happening. The shadow bent its eyeless face low, its voice booming in 1,000 whispers. "If you will not give me the children, then I will take your home." The floor beneath their feet buckled, threatening to collapse. Where are you watching from? If you want more, make sure you like this video, subscribe for more spine-chilling folktales, and share it with someone who loves suspense. The house groaned as if alive, its wooden beams screaming under the weight of the shadow. Cracks split across the attic floor, racing down the walls. A family portrait fell from the wall and shattered, glass scattering like ice. The shadow spread its arms wide, pressing against the roof and walls at once. The whole house shook as if it would rip apart. Daniel grunted, still pinned by the shadow's claws. Blood seeped from his shirt where the darkness had cut through, but he held on, refusing to be pulled away. Grace clung to his waist, her nails digging in, her face streaked with tears. "Don't you dare leave us, Daniel. Not now." The children's glow brightened again, but the shadow roared, pressing harder. Naomi staggered to her feet, her hair wild, her face half swallowed by darkness. She grinned, her voice layered with the shadows. "Let it take the house. Let it take all of you. That is the price of love. You will lose everything." Grandma Ruth forced herself upright, gripping the glowing shard of her broken cane. Her body shook with weakness, but her eyes blazed. "No," she rasped, "the price of love is sacrifice, and sacrifice is stronger than greed." She raised the cane shard high and shouted, "Children, listen to me. Your love has made light. But light must be planted deep to grow. Push it into the heart of the dark." Ava's eyes widened in sudden understanding. "The box," she gasped. "It started with the box." Liam looked at his glowing wrist. "Then we end it with the box." Together, the three children tightened their grip, their white fire now blazing like a sun. Their glow pulsed outward, creating a path straight to the cracked, trembling box at the center of the circle. The shadow screamed, writhing, trying to block them, but the light burned holes straight through its arms. "Go!" Grace cried, her voice shaking but fierce. "We're right behind you." Ava, Liam, and Noah stepped forward together, their small bodies outlined in fire. The attic floor splintered under the strain, but the path of light held steady. Naomi shrieked, trying to throw herself at them, but Ruth thrust the glowing cane shard into her chest. Naomi flew backward, screaming, pinned against the wall, her body writhing as the light seared through her. The children reached the box. Its lid snapped open, black smoke pouring out, claws stretching wildly. But the children did not falter. Ava raised her glowing hand. "We are not afraid of you," she said. Liam added, "We have our family." Noah, trembling but brave, whispered, "We are love." All three pressed their glowing hands onto the box at once. The attic exploded with light. The shadow shrieked, its voice echoing across the house, rattling every nail and stone. Its body flailed, breaking into ribbons of smoke that evaporated in the children's glow. Naomi let out one final, piercing scream before collapsing, her body still. The cracks in the walls glowed white, sealing shut as the light filled every corner of the attic. Daniel gasped as the claws withdrew from his chest. Grace pulled him into her arms, sobbing with relief. Ruth fell to her knees, tears streaming down her wrinkled face as she whispered, "It is finished." The box shattered into dust. The light slowly dimmed, leaving only the sound of the rain outside. The family stood together in the silence, breathing hard, their hearts pounding. The attic was scarred, broken in places, but the shadow was gone. Grace knelt and pulled the children into her arms. "You were so brave," she whispered, kissing their heads. Daniel wrapped his arms around them all, holding them tight. But as the family clung together, Ruth's hand slipped from the cane shard. Her body swayed, her face pale. She sank to the floor quietly. "Mom?" Grace cried, rushing to her side. Daniel dropped beside her, pressing fingers to her neck. There was a pulse, faint but steady. Ruth opened her eyes slowly, her voice soft. "I gave what I could. The rest is up to you." Then, with a weak smile, she whispered, "The light will always answer love," before her eyes fluttered shut. The children sobbed, holding onto her hands. Grace pressed her forehead to her mother's and prayed she would wake again. And in the silence, just as the family began to believe it was over, a faint sound rose from the dust where the box had been. "Knock. Knock. Knock. Where are you watching from?" If you want more, make sure you like this video, subscribe for more thrilling folktales, and share it with someone who loves suspense. The attic was silent except for the sound of rain dripping from the roof and the ragged breaths of the Carter family. The box was gone, no longer solid, no longer wood, only dust scattered across the floor. The family thought it was finished. They thought they had won. But then it came. Knock, knock, knock. It was faint, but it was there. The sound rose from the pile of dust where the box had been, echoing as if there was still something inside. Grace's heart dropped. Her arms tightened around Ava, Liam, and Noah. Daniel froze, his hand hovering protectively over his wife's shoulder. The children whimpered, clutching one another. Ava whispered, "It's still here." The sound came again, louder now. Knock, knock, knock. Daniel stood, stepping slowly in front of his family, his face pale but determined. His shirt was still stained with blood where the shadow had clawed him, but his voice was firm. "Stay back," he said. "Whatever's left, I'll face it." "No," Ruth's weak voice rasped from the floor. She had not risen since her collapse, but her eyes fluttered open. "Not you. It is not after strength. It feeds on weakness, on cracks in the heart." The family froze. The dust shifted, and from it something began to rise. At first it looked like a hand, pale, brittle, skeletal. Then another. Slowly a figure crawled out of the dust. Not a shadow this time, but something half-formed. It looked like Naomi, but smaller, younger, fragile, like a ghost of who she had once been. She lifted her head and the family gasped. Her eyes were no longer glowing with power. They were hollow, rimmed with tears. She whispered in a broken voice, "Help me?" Grace staggered back, clutching the children. "No. This is a trick." But Naomi shook her head violently. "No. Please, it's me. I didn't want this. The box used me. It chose me because I was empty inside. I only wanted to belong somewhere." Her voice cracked like dry wood. Ava's face softened, confusion filling her young eyes. "Mom? She sounds like she's telling the truth." Daniel snarled. "Don't listen. She tried to take you all." Naomi reached her trembling hands toward them. "I was alone," she sobbed. "Always alone. No family. No kindness. Do you know what that feels like? When no one ever loves you. When no one even looks at you. The box found me in the dark. It promised me I'd never be forgotten again." Grace's heart twisted painfully. For a moment she saw not the monster who had almost destroyed her children, but a broken girl desperate for belonging. She looked at her children, at Ava's compassionate eyes, at Liam's trembling lips, at Noah's innocent face, and she understood the choice before them. Kindness was a seed. It could grow into safety. But kindness was also a risk. If they rejected Naomi now, would the box return? Would the darkness find strength in her pain? Ruth's voice, faint but urgent, whispered from the floor, "Grace, the circle is not closed. If her emptiness stays, the darkness will root itself again. But if you fill it." Grace knew. She stepped forward slowly, ignoring Daniel's warning hand. She looked Naomi in the eyes. "If you truly want help," she said softly, "then let go of the darkness. Choose love. Choose family, not control." Naomi trembled, her tears falling into the dust. "I don't know how," she whispered. Grace extended her hand. Her fingers shook, but her eyes were steady. "Then let me show you." The children gasped. Daniel hissed, "Grace, don't." But Ava whispered, "Dad, maybe this is what will end it for good." Naomi stared at Grace's outstretched hand. Slowly, painfully she reached forward. When their fingers touched, the attic filled with a brilliant white glow, brighter than the children's light before. The dust around them rose, spinning into the air like fireflies. The rain outside stopped. For a moment the world itself seemed to hold still. Naomi screamed, not in anger this time but in pain, in release. The glow poured through her body, burning away the remnants of shadow that clung to her. Her face twisted, her body arched, and then she collapsed into Grace's arms, sobbing like a child. "It's gone," she whispered. "The box is gone." The family held their breath. The attic, for the first time that night, was quiet. Truly quiet. The storm had ended. Daniel slowly lowered his hands. He looked at Grace, at Naomi cradled against her, and let out a long, shaky breath. "God help us," he muttered. "Maybe this really is over." The children clung to their mother, their glow fading but their hearts lighter. Ruth smiled weakly, closing her eyes with relief. "The circle is closed." For a long time no one moved. They simply breathed, alive, together. But then, a faint wind brushed across the attic floor. It lifted the last of the dust into the air. The family froze, watching as it swirled into a shape, 3 faint knocks echoing one last time. Knock, knock, knock. The dust swirled, and then scattered, vanishing into nothing. The silence that followed was deep, whole, final. The Carters were safe. But they would never forget. Days later, the family sat together at breakfast. The sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, warm and golden. Ava buttered toast for Liam. Noah spilled his juice and laughed. Daniel ruffled their hair, his chest still bandaged but healing. Grace sipped her coffee, her eyes tired but grateful. Naomi was gone. After that night, she had vanished quietly, leaving behind only a note. Thank you for showing me what I never knew. I will try to find my own tree to grow. The family never saw her again. But sometimes, late at night, Grace would hear the children humming Grandma Ruth's lullaby as they drifted to sleep, and she would smile. The darkness had tried to take them, but love had been stronger. And in the silence of her heart, she prayed that Naomi, wherever she went, had truly let go of the box forever. Because some doors once opened can never fully close. And kindness, though powerful, must always walk with vigilance. The Carter family had survived the evil maid and the cursed box. But the story was more than fear, it was a reminder. In a world full of shadows, love and kindness are the only true light. Where are you watching from? Globe showing Europe, Africa. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more African modern folktales, and share it with a friend who loves suspense. Drop a comment with more, and your location so I know where my amazing audience is tuning in from. Speech balloon sparkles.